guys, I'm here to today talk about data center operations. We know that what's happening in Saudi market. As you know, I've been introduced. I'm Syed Omair. I'm head of the data center consulting in Keynote LLC. It's a US-based company which is providing consultancy services in Saudi Arabia. So we basically are subject matter experts who talk about different subjects. Now today we are going to talk about data center operations. Now, basically, as we all know that the market is booming in data centers in Saudi Arabia, cloud, AI. You're going to see that in the next slide. Okay, there are different factors that are contributing to the growth of data centers in this region. Okay, so this gives significance to the operations. Operation and maintenance is the most important factor post construction. Okay, that you need for your data centers. So there are some challenges in the local market that we're going to address, providing some solutions and roadmap and steps, focused especially for the end users. Okay, so it's a knowledge sharing session, so feel free to take notes, ask any questions you have relating to this topic. So today we are going to talk about in-house versus outsourced data centers. Basically, whether the end users they want to run their operations in-house or they want to outsource this to a third party. Okay, or go for a hybrid model. So we are going to discuss this and give you our recommendations. So the agenda is something like we are going to start with market insights, then we are going to jump into what data center operations are, then we are going to see some different models like I explained, and then the key challenges in the market, in Saudi market especially, when it comes to data center operations and managed services. Okay, and then we are going to give you our recommendations, an ideal organization chart. Now this is very key importance because people are really confused when it comes to different elements of operation and maintenance. It's a very wide topic and it has different areas, so I'll give you a complete staffing plan, you can say. Okay, and then very importantly a roadmap. Now as a developer, as an end user, when you go into operations, what can be an ideal roadmap for you? So it's going to be a very high level roadmap because it's too detailed to be it's a separate topic, but I'm going to briefly touch on it. And then, conclusion and takeaways from this session. So the current trends in the market for data center operations. Now, as we all know, these are not new to any one of you, but these are very important when we talk about managed services or total data center operation and maintenance, okay, in Saudi Arabia. We have right now, hyperscalers. So post 2017, okay, the trend started for hyperscale data centers, and now last year it's generative AI has taken the lead. So AI, machine learning, hyperscale, cloud, public cloud especially, okay, green sustainability, green, clean energy, okay, renewables, security compliance is very important. The data privacy in the country, because of data privacy law, that to have all the data within the kingdom. There is a huge surge in building local data centers and relying on somebody whose data center is physically outside of Saudi Arabia. Okay, so smart cities. Okay, there are many initiatives for smart cities in Saudi. That also gives surge to data centers because you need to automate and monitor the entire city through IoT and different technologies in a centralized location, right? So you have a huge demand for data centers over there as well. Okay, and also in smart cities you will have surveillance systems, citywide surveillance system or ITS, intelligent transportation system. Okay, where you need a traffic management center and you need to surveillance for the whole city. You will need several, huge storage, gigabytes of storage. For that you need to again build data centers. So these factors contribute to the demand of data centers. Okay, and of course standardization. Okay, like ISO 27001, 27017, 18, 14001, 9001, PCI DSS, HIPAA, FISMA. There are so many security compliances, NCA, ECC, National Cyber Security Authority of Saudi Arabia. So because of that, the data needs to be secure, not just the data, the whole facility, your data centers, you need to have all the security layers in place and comply with the standards. Okay, so there is a demand to build secure and robust data centers in Saudi Arabia. Now our subject today is operations. We are going to focus about basically what an MSP, a managed service provider, would do, or an end user would do on his own. Okay, so we are going to discuss that. Now, this is a very important topic. When you talk about data center operation, it's such a vast area. There are so many elements which I'm going to show you briefly in the next slide. But just to break it down first, going through too much technical details, there are 5 major areas when you talk about data center operations. There is total facilities management, there is white space management, there is IT managed network services, there is fit out engineering, remote hand, smart hand, and there is maintenance SLA. Combine these 5 major areas contribute to something called total data center management. Now, unfortunately, there is not one company today. In my knowledge, I may be wrong, and any one of you can correct me, but I've spent like good time for 15 years in this country, so I'm pretty confident in what I'm saying. So, there's not one company who's providing end-to-end data center operation and maintenance to any end user, okay? Covering all these 5 major areas. Now, this is a big opportunity for stakeholders, those businesses who are trying to capitalize into this market or enter this niche area of data center, that they build their value proposition and business based on these areas, okay? So that's something to ponder on. And for developers and end users, since our topic is tailored for end users, it's an alarming thing because now they have to realize that they need to build these capabilities in-house. Post 2017, okay, there was not, we had data centers, of course, about 200 megawatts something, right? So those data centers were, it was not that strict, it was not commercialized to that level. We had commercial co-location. I was myself a co-location director at that time, but not on the hyperscale level. Since now the hyperscalers are coming into the country like AWS, Microsoft, Google, Oracle, all these big players, they need complete end-to-end operations, which gives importance to this slide. Okay, so now the companies and the businesses and the end users, because they are having business from the hyperscalers, they are realizing the need to build robust end-to-end operation and maintenance model and capabilities, which is a huge gap in today's market, and we can talk more about it if somebody has questions. So now, I said operation is a very wide topic. So if you look at end-to-end operation, this is something what it looks like, but it's quite complicated for maybe this kind of session. So I just summarize it in 5 areas for you guys, just to keep you, like, I know many of you are from industry experts and you understand all of this, but maybe not for everybody who's in the session. So to keep it brief, okay, we have, for example, facilities management, we have IT infrastructure, maintenance, remote hands. There's so many things that go into end-to-end data center operations, and you can see from this slide. But they all fall in those 5 categories. So the good thing is that if you cover those 5 areas, you will have the full coverage end-to-end. Now we talk about different models for delivering those different data center operation services. There is something called in-house operation. Now when somebody builds, let's say 100 megawatt data center or 80 megawatt GPU cluster, AI-based data center, or a public cloud data center, or a co-location, okay? So they have following options with them when it comes to operation and maintenance. They can either do it in-house, or they can outsource it to a managed service provider, okay? Or they can do a hybrid, a mix of model. So that's the main subject of today's discussion, and we are going to show you these models and what are the advantages of each, and which, so basically there is not one fixed model. It depends on your client needs, what the end user is looking for, okay? So if the end user is looking to, you will see, okay, that if they are going to look for minimum risk and maximum security, and then they have to do it in-house maybe, okay, everything. If you lease it to a service provider, or you give it to, subcontract to a service provider, you will have to compromise on few things and get benefits on the other. For example, the security, you will have to compromise on that. Okay, some of your services will be shared services, your data privacy, okay, but then there are ways like ISO 27001 and PCI that can secure that as well. So that's not, it's a remedy for everything, but that's what I'm trying to say. And a hybrid model where you try to keep the critical services in-house and outsource the non-critical functions, okay, such as cloud, public, cloud hosting and those kind of things. So now we'll look deep into this subject, okay. So these are the 3 models, okay. All of you, I believe, can see. I'm not talking anyone's view. It's two projectors. So we have, the control first of all. So in-house operations versus outsourced versus a mix of both, hybrid model. Okay, so you in-house, of course, you will have the full control as compared to outsourced model where you are sharing the control with your managed service provider, but that too could be secured with different certification and compliances like we discussed. And a hybrid model, like I said, you have the most critical services, for example, total facilities management, white space management, something that's close to your data center in-house, and you can maybe go for IT managed network services and cloud hosting and those kind of things, outsourced. Okay, so you are trying to minimize the risk. Okay, customization, of course, when you do something in-house, it's natural that you have the maximum customization option available. Whatever you are looking for, you can tailor your solution and services accordingly, and you can build the ideal, your dream team. Okay, but when you go for managed services, okay, when you go to a partner outsourcing it, okay, then you have limited customization based on the limitations of your service provider. He might not be able to give you all that you are looking for in one place. Okay, then you can maybe subcontract different providers, and you can go for the hybrid one. Okay, so hybrid will give you benefit of both. Okay, you can have some services customized and also rely on the service provider. You can break it down, and this is the most common model, by the way, nowadays in Saudi Arabia. Okay, most of the big players, they're having this model for the last several decades. Okay, expertise. Okay, when you go for in-house data center, not everybody can hire the best talent in the world. You can hire talented people, but if you want to go, you want the best of the best from in every spectrum, because there are so many verticals in a data center, and you want the best expert for everything. It's sometimes better that you subcontract and find with your service providers than hiring everybody who's may not be that cost effective. All the top qualified people in one place will be quite expensive. Okay. Cost efficiency, of course, if you're doing it in-house, you are going to have, more, you are going to pay more initially, but ultimately your cost of ownership would be less. But if you are subcontracting, your upfront would be less amount, but the long run you will be paying much more. Okay, just typical sourcing model. Okay, scalability, you can have a scalable, fully controlled. Okay, in your data center, you have, if you do it in-house everything, you're going to have limited scalability, you're going to have limited flexibility. Okay, you have to pay the full salaries of all resources, whether you need them or not need them. But in a subcontracted model, an outsourced model, you have the flexibility. You can go for on-demand, hourly wages and different type of, engagements, and that can be cost effective for you in that way. Data security, we already discussed. Risk management, of course, in-house, it's the least risk for everything. Everything is under your control. But when with third-party providers, you share some risk with them. But then again, I said there's several ways to mitigate that as well. And key elements now. For in-house, you should be focusing on the key areas. Okay, the most sensitive, depending on your business needs. Okay, for some of you, if your core business comes from IT managed network services, IT network services like IT operations, NOC and SOC, then you can do that in-house as well. Okay, but for a commercial co-location who's just looking to lease out space to tenants, off-takers, they might not need to have IT managed network services as in-house service, and they can subcontract it. So these are the three models. Okay, now before giving you further recommendations on which models to go for, like it's not a fair answer. It depends on your needs and how you look into things and how you want to engage and what your budget restrictions and requirements are. Okay, so the challenges in Saudi market for operations. Now, when you go for building, whether in-house team or an outsourced team or a hybrid team, the top challenges is having like I said, a partner who can cover you end to end. And by the way, I don't do that, so it's not something that we can talk about different subjects as an expert, but we really need to build a company who can provide these services. Okay, so you have the big problem is that when we are building commercial data center hyperscale co-location facilities, one of the biggest problems that the customer face today, the investors and developers face, is having not having the customer-centric approach. Because when you build commercial hyperscale data centers, you need to focus on what your end user is looking for rather than what you are building. So you may be building, but you don't have an end user right now. You don't have a guarantor or an off-taker for your co-location that is going to sign up with you day one, and you need to build something, right? So it's very important, because when you're inviting hyperscalers in this country, they will follow their own specification. The standards that are most common, okay, are used in data centers. They will not be applied or across the board, because the end user will have their own internal specifications. So it's to counter this, what can be done is basically, if you're going to build 100 megawatt, let's start with a small capacity, and see you find the right partners and off-takers who can be a guarantor for your investment, who can be sure that you can have the business, okay, and then you can scale more further capacity based on their specification. So you design the full data center on some a standard, and then you leave some customization options open for different tenants to come in. Okay, that can be one solution. Since I'm talking about challenges, I must talk about their solutions. Leaving you with problems is not the right way. It's not the norm. So availability of the right partners, qualified resources. It's very difficult to find right talent. It's one of the biggest gap in the country right now. Okay, but to counter this, there are many solutions. We should focus on building the local talent up. Okay, there is a huge huge demand for training and bringing the expertise from outside to inside the country. Okay, and there can be training programs from the OEM, from the consultants, from the SMEs, who can train the existing, the new graduate programs, new graduates into different technologies in data centers. So if you find the right partners, so part of their deliverables, then delivering your operations as managed services, is to train your staff and the upcoming engineers and managers in this market. So you can do basically a training academy, you can do different courses, and you can bring that knowledge to the right place. Okay. Now another challenge, since operations is a big topic and there are so many gaps, like I said, total facilities management, white space management, IT management for services. Mostly the contracts are not written correctly covering all of this. The contracts, the SLAs in place, either they are not back to back with the right contractors. When the hyperscalers come into the country, they will ask you for very aggressive SLAs. That SLAs will be a challenge for you to have back to back with other service providers. For example, connectivity. Okay, for hyperscalers today, the most important factor, when I say hyperscalers, I mean companies like AWS, Google, Oracle, these big players, okay? So the biggest requirement for them is connectivity. If you give them a downtime on connectivity, they're going to throw a very huge penalty on you, on the developer, who has built that facility, okay? So it's very important that these factors are looked in, and to remediate this, you can do a carrier neutral facility. You can have multiple carriers. You can make sure the routes are redundant and robust, and you can build a resilience network, okay, to counter that, to minimize the connectivity downtime risk. So there are many things that you can do. Incomplete contracts. Now, I personally have written for a hyperscale facility an operations contract that was 17 schedules. So it's important to hire, to have the right people guide you when you're drafting your contract, so there are no gaps, okay? Because when you look at any operations of a leading provider today, you will find a big gap in any one or multiple of those 5 areas, okay? So it's important that you look into that and you place them in the right place, and the SLAs and KPIs and all the things that your off-taker is asking you to put in your contract, you make sure you timely acquire the right managed service providers to cover those and to give you those performance guarantees. It's sometimes difficult to get them, and you need to work on that extra and make sure your contracts are completed, there are no gaps, okay? Customer experience. One of the biggest complaints in Saudi is a service provider is not giving the right customer experience. Customers are complaining, because, okay, there are talented people, but sometimes too technical people, they don't live up to the needs of the customer. They have the communication gap and those kind of things. So it's important to have the right, team, business development team, accounts team, and technical people at the same time who can talk and give comfort to the customer. Now, some practical recommendations for the end users for data center operations. You know, it's highly recommended that they do a need analysis based on their business need. Okay, business needs, what they are looking for, what kind of business they want to build. Okay, and based on that, you have the right framework in place and right contracts in place. Pick the right DCO model. The next thing is recommendation is to, not every model is fit for everyone. You need to look up which model suits you the best, and invest in your own, your talent. Bring the right people with you. Give them incentives, give them the right motivation so they stay with you. They don't leave you for other places. Okay, and have worked with trusted partners. Okay, in different areas, in operations, in certifications, in design, construction. You will have trusted partners to support you with good reputation. Have periodic reviews of your requirements. Okay, today you have requirement 1, but maybe after 3 years you will have different requirements. So that framework that you put in place 3 years back might not be valid now. So you need to review it again, okay? And do audits, frequent audits and those kind of things to validate and your requirements and to live up to them, to ensure that you are appealing to your own customer base, and you have the kind of retention, and you give them the best service. Focus on key elements when you're doing things in-house. The most sensitive things based on your business needs, they are different for everyone. Okay, for example, white space management, server, okay, where you're installing the racks, fit outs, okay, you manage your server room yourself, and you can outsource then, less critical things. Let's say the service of the generators, okay, different things you can outsource and keep the most crucial functions with you, okay. End users focus, like I said, it's very important to build and operate data centers based on your customer needs, okay, and customers, I mean off-takers and hyperscalers, and their specification and requirements. Now, this is, in our opinion, a complete data center organization chart which covers end-to-end all those 5 areas, whether facilities management, white space management, IT managed network services, remote hand, smart hand fit out services, or maintenance. Okay, it's a complete IBM team that looks at everything. So I've worked in several 20 plus operations projects in last 10-15 years, and not one has this complete team. So this is what ideally each team should look like. Now this is the roadmap. We don't have much time, I believe. How much time do we have? 2 minutes. Okay. So this is a high-level roadmap of setting up your operations team. Okay, from the developers and users perspective. Okay, so and there can be more milestones to this, but basically when you're trying to develop your own operations team, this is something you need to go through. You need to set up first of all your OM team. Okay, these are the activities you need to do, and then followed by the benefits. Okay, for example, you need to develop the right O&M strategy day 1. Okay, do a property analysis, have a proper staffing plan. Okay, and appoint the right partners. Okay, the benefit it gives you is that you get operational excellence. You have audit compliances. You have you meet the different SAMA and CST and different national NCA audit requirements. Okay, and you have efficient operations. So this is like a one, and there can be several steps that can be discussed, and the roadmap can be expanded accordingly. In conclusion, basically, it's very important to find the right balance between what you are looking for. Not every model is fit for every business. Every business is different, and you need to tailor your contracts based on that. But get the right help, work with the right professionals who know the business well, and you do a gap analysis, you do a need analysis, and you put up your requirement, and you draft your contract and business plans accordingly. Okay, so, and of course don't forget that for hyperscale sector, it's very important to focus on what the hyperscalers look for, and that's something new, relatively new in this market today. So these are what my points are, and please, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Okay. Thanks. Yeah.
We'll just take one question and then we'll wrap it up.
Please.
Thank you for your good presentation. You had your chart that said outsourcing control is limited.
Yeah.
And I have a feeling that I disagree with that, because with the right contract, right SLA, and the right partner, you may have more control of your operations and the systems. If I send my kid to school rather than educate at home, it's not that I don't have any control over his or her education. So control over an operations doesn't mean that outsourcing, you get less control. A good outsourcing contract can actually mean the opposite, in my opinion.
Yes, you are right in a way that any risk can be mitigated with the right strategy in place. Okay, so but it is true
It's
that
not a risk, outsourcing. It's
outsourcing is a
might
risk.
be a risk to be internal, actually.
Right. So when you work with different parties, then relying on your own in-house staff, of course you're introducing some level of risk. There is no denying that. Okay. So, but your point is that everything can be mitigated with the right strategy and right framework and right guidance. I agree with that. Okay. But there is a risk when you go to a contractor and ask him to come and manage your operations, and you don't know what the staff is going to do. At least there is less
If you don't
accountability.
know what they're doing, then you're not managing it well.
Yeah, you are not managing it well, but it is a known fact that if you have your own people, then somebody else's people, there's a huge difference. You can bind them, make them liable with contracts, SLAs and penalties, but you will have,
Even your own people, you don't know everything everybody's doing.
we need a different session with you and me, okay? Thank you.
Thank you so much for the amazing